Hello guys, I'm sure you know that a lot of Russians dreamt to return back to the USSR. And now their dream has come true, at least from the economic perspective. Because the Kremlin is preparing to impose price controls, just as it was in the worst days of the Soviet Union. They will fix the prices on a lot of everyday products to avoid the constantly growing inflation. This will not save the Russian economy, but this will definitely destroy more agricultural companies or supermarket chains. Another Soviet style is freezing their deposits. Millions of Russians are now trying to take back their money from the collapsing Russian banks. The number of such actions grew 3.9% because they realize soon this money, their deposits, will be frozen again because of the growing inflation. And most importantly, the International Monetary Fund finally made the prognosis for Russia even worse than it was. Russian economy will grow 3 times slower than the rest of the world economy in the next year, and like 5 times slower than in the United States, and I don't know how many times slower than in China. And all that multiplied by a tsunami in Kamchatka near their submarines capable of carrying dangerous weapons. It seems the nature, the economy, everything inside Russia is trying to tell the Kremlin the collapse is coming. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat of the Russian Federation, subscribe, we will discuss that on the channel sometime really soon. And please share these videos to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine. Your likes and comments help a lot. So let's start with this sensation. I'm not sure that your media will report a lot about that, but trust me, that is #1 news even inside the evil Russian Federation. I'm actually really close to Belarus border and was surprised to learn that you can easily access Russian web pages here, the majority of which are restricted in Ukraine, and I consider that to be right. So all over Russian internet, they are discussing this classical Soviet tactics of price controls, regulated prices. And this is a true disaster for business, for agriculture, for supermarket chains, and all of them have already expressed tremendous concerns about this decision. So the government plans to fix prices for basic products, and there are a lot of them, like eggs, milk, all kinds of vegetables, cheese, like a lot. Like there are hundreds of various items, and trust me, this is most of you eat. And they want to fix prices in March 2026 and to keep them the same during the year. While the producers, the farmers keep saying that's unrealistic. We cannot predict the prices for the whole year, especially taking into account this burning from inside of the Russian recession. And they try to react, but I'm not sure anything will save them. What is also interesting, there are two options. The way they will freeze the prices, they will control these prices. One is less dictatorial, when a producer and a chain agree on the prices and keep them during the year. But the second, most realistic, is where the state dictates the prices and everyone have to follow this regulation. So they can say the eggs cost one thing, and in reality, to produce that, it will cost way more, which will lead, you can guess, to more problems inside the already collapsing Russian economy. The only reason they need to do it, right, inflation. They are trying to freeze the inflation, but they keep failing. And this is a reminder how Russia overestimated itself, with the economy smaller than the one of Italy and being the largest country in the world. They planned a blitzkrieg. A blitzkrieg failed, and now they keep failing day after day. They spend billions of dollars per week to keep destroying Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, forgetting one very important consequence. They destroy their own country way faster. Please like, share, and subscribe. That's important. Plus, the updates are really good. Also, those of you who follow economic news from the Russian Federation might have noticed that recently they lowered key interest rates from 21 to 18.3. But this process was not natural, and it is the result of collective bankruptcies of some huge companies and the way they want to keep, once again, the inflation afloat. But a lot of people, especially with that Soviet experience of the collapsed bank, disappeared deposits, now want to take back their money from the Russian banks. And what the majority of big, up to 20 Russian banks keep reporting is that people started taking their deposits back. And the number of those who want to take money back grows exponentially, with now more than 3.9% per month growth of those taking their deposits back. You know that by itself, this very process, this panic, is very negative for the Russian financial system, but I also understand why they are doing it. There are a lot of generations of Soviet people, of Russian people who have already experienced similar conditions, and in similar conditions lost that little they had, because you couldn't be honest and rich in Soviet Union, you couldn't be honest and rich in the Russian Federation, and even those small sums of money that people kept in banks disappeared. For example, my own family in times of the Soviet Union lost the money, and then the Soviet Union collapsed. By the way, this resembles the years before the fall of the USSR. I know that skeptics will keep saying you're talking a lot about that, but this is a huge process happening in the largest country in the world with the strongest censorship possible. But finally, we see things that are impossible to hide. Finally, they talk about that even in Russian media, and people are dissatisfied. Nobody wants this prices controls because it's realistic. It's not because of wealth. It's not because of something good. And cherry on the top of all that is the new forecast from the International Monetary Fund, and we know that Russia tried to influence that fund. It's not very transparent. They keep reporting whatever they want, giving the numbers they like, but finally, taking a close look at what is happening inside the Russian financial system, banking system, still falling oil prices, new sanctions coming, and this cumulative effect of other sanctions, collapsing aviation, problems with logistics, explosions inside Russia, and Russia being a mess, they've decided to, make the prognosis worse. And now they predict that the Russian economy will develop 3 times slower than the global economy. And global economy is not the economy of only successful countries. That is like an average. So the largest country in the world that claim to be the strongest, super rich, super successful will develop 3 times slower than the rest. Way slower than the United States, way slower than the European Union. And I think it's the right time to defeat and demilitarize this evil, monstrous federation to prevent more conflicts from happening. Because right now, Iran, China, they are inspired by indecisiveness, by chaos, and might think that's the time to grasp the opportunity, but not, because Russia will collapse really quickly, and that will be a beautiful moment. Plus, it seems like Mother Nature is on our side too, and they had a very big earthquake in the Pacific that resulted in a huge tsunami in Kamchatka region. I hope people in Japan and in other peaceful districts of the planet remain safe and well prepared, because once again, these are the countries that care about human lives, that invest in the protection of these people, that at least inform people in the correct moment about the dangers. In Russia, it's just the country. They pretend everything is fine. They do not report the problems, and they keep spending money on targeting Ukrainian hospitals instead of building more hospitals in their miserable regions. By the way, Kamchatka is far east, And so close to Japan, so maybe one day after the dissolution of the Russian Federation. Well, let me know. Let me know in the comments below. How do you think? What can happen after the dissolution of the Russian Federation? Because trust me, this process has already started. Do check my new interview that I consider very important with Ukrainian museum activists and legal activists, where they tell real life stories from brave, heroic Ukrainian museum workers and how they protect our cultural heritage, especially on the occupied territories. That is super important, and I'm grateful to everyone who will like, share, and comment on that video, because such people must be made known. They are true heroes of Ukraine. Remember to follow me on X, on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord. The links in the description, same as the link to our merch shop with lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. Thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channels, and helping me film and write more. I'm blessed to have you in my life. Thank you for being friends of mine and friends of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!